What happens when talent, courage, and truth collide? On the field, the mat, or the ice? For these 5 LGBTQ+ male athletes, coming out didn't just mean being honest, it meant risking everything. In sports where toughness is everything, and silence often feels like survival, they chose to speak. Some were nearly kicked out, some were mocked, others were told to tone it down or stay in the closet, but none of them backed down. In today's episode of Rainbow Spotlight, we're celebrating 5 gay athletes who stood up, fought back, and redefined what it means to be a champion. Not just in competition, but in life. Their battles weren't always visible, but their bravery is unforgettable. Let's dive in. Drop a number in the comments if you believe every athlete deserves to play as their true self. Nicolas Puschmann, the bachelor who flipped the script on love and hate. In a world where dating shows thrive on fantasy and formula, Nicolas Puschmann broke the mold and made history. In 2019, he became Germany's very first Prince Charming, starring in an all-gay version of the popular Bachelor franchise. For the first time, millions tuned in not to watch a woman win a man's heart, but to witness 2 men falling in love under the same spotlight that once excluded them. And Nicolas? He handled it all with class, humor, and quiet power. Tall, handsome, and disarmingly genuine, he wasn't the stereotypical reality TV star. He wasn't there to stir up drama or chase fame. He wanted something real, and he wasn't afraid to show vulnerability on camera. That alone was revolutionary. But behind the smile and the suaveness, there was a deeper story. Before he became a national heartthrob, Nicolas had faced years of internal struggle. Growing up gay in Germany wasn't always easy, especially for someone who looked and sounded like the perfect straight guy. He didn't fit into anyone's box, too normal for the gay stereotypes, too queer for the mainstream. And when he entered the public eye, the backlash came fast and hard. "I got hate messages just for holding another man's hand on TV," Nicolas once revealed. Suddenly, love became political. But he didn't back down. Instead, Nicolas doubled down on representation. He used his platform to speak about mental health, queer visibility, and the importance of seeing gay love portrayed with dignity and joy, not as a punchline, not as tragedy, but as something tender, real, and worth rooting for. Even after the show ended, he kept pushing boundaries. He joined Germany's version of Dancing with the Stars and danced with a male partner. The first time in the show's history, it wasn't just a dance. It was a statement. 2 men twirling across the floor, elegant and proud, refusing to let tradition dictate love or art. Still, the journey was far from smooth. Online hate, death threats, and homophobic slurs were all part of the price he paid for visibility. But for every troll, there were 10 teens who said, "You made me feel less alone." And for Nicolas, that made everything worth it. What makes Nicolas Puschmann's story extraordinary isn't just the headlines or the firsts. It's the way he stayed soft in a world that tried to harden him. He never lashed out. He never stopped smiling. He let his authenticity do the talking, even when it came at a cost. Today, he remains a beacon of modern masculinity, equal parts charming, confident, and unapologetically queer. A man who fought hate with grace and turned a dating show into a movement. Drop a 2 if you believe love, when shown with courage, can change the world. Rainbow Heart. Jason Brown, the figure skater, who refused to dim his sparkle. From the moment Jason Brown glided onto the ice, he brought something rare: grace, charisma, and a spark that couldn't be missed. Known for his flowing ponytail and spellbinding performances, Jason was a standout not just for his technical skill, but for the emotional depth he poured into every routine. While other skaters relied on brute strength or flashy jumps, Jason turned the ice into a stage. Every movement felt like art. But as the world cheered his artistry, there was one part of Jason he kept off the rink. Behind the costumes and clean programs was a young man afraid of not being accepted. Figure skating may seem more progressive than other sports, but homophobia still lingers beneath the sequins. Coaches warn about appearing too feminine. Judges are known to reward masculine styles. And fans, they can be brutal online. Jason felt it. And like many athletes before him, he stayed silent, not out of shame, but out of fear that being openly gay would overshadow his work. As he climbed the ranks, becoming a U.S. national champion and competing in the Olympics, Jason kept the focus on his performances. But inside, he was living in a split screen, one for the world, one for himself. It wasn't until 2021, at age 26, that he decided to step into the light. In a heartfelt letter posted to social media, Jason came out publicly writing, "I've always been gay and it's always been a part of me, but it hasn't always been something I've been ready to talk about." The figure skating world, usually known for gossip and speculation, responded with something unexpected: love. Fans, fellow athletes, even longtime competitors poured out support. But the real shift happened in Jason himself. He skated freer. He smiled brighter. He no longer had to hide a single part of who he was. And with that honesty came even more power. Still, the journey wasn't without resistance. Some questioned the timing. Why now? Others dismissed it entirely, saying, "It doesn't matter. Just skate." But Jason knew that visibility matters, especially in a sport where boys are often mocked for pursuing beauty over brute force. By owning his truth, he gave quiet permission for others to do the same. What makes Jason's story so compelling isn't just that he came out, it's that he did it with elegance, kindness, and zero need for drama. He didn't scream, he didn't throw shade, he just showed up as himself. And that's revolutionary. Today, Jason Brown continues to inspire young LGBTQ+ athletes, not only with his athleticism, but with his integrity. He reminds us that authenticity doesn't weaken performance, it enhances it, and that the real gold isn't always a medal. It's the freedom to be fully, beautifully, undeniably you. Drop a one if Jason's courage made the ice even more powerful. Alec Yoder, the gymnast who flipped expectations and refused to fall. Alec Yoder wasn't just another gymnast on the mat. He was a force of quiet intensity. With his razor-sharp focus, clean lines, and signature flair on the pommel horse, Alec captivated audiences long before they knew the full story. But beneath the medals, the routines, and the flawless landings was a young man navigating a world of pressure, performance, and the fear of not fitting in. Born and raised in Indiana, Alec was groomed to be a champion from a young age. He trained hard, competed fiercely, and wore the red, white, and blue with pride. Representing Team USA, he became a national title holder and eventually competed in the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, cementing his status as one of America's top gymnasts. But in a sport where masculinity is often defined by silence and stoicism, Alec was quietly rewriting the rules. He wasn't just talented, he was different. With his open heart, artistic style, and willingness to show emotion, Alec stood out in a discipline that traditionally demands conformity. And for a long time, he kept a part of himself hidden, not because he was ashamed, but because he wasn't sure the world was ready. Eventually, Alec chose honesty over fear. In a heartfelt post after retiring from elite gymnastics, he came out publicly as gay. He thanked the sport that shaped him and the people who stood by him, but also acknowledged the weight he'd carried for years. "Being true to myself wasn't always an option," he wrote, "but now it's non-negotiable." The outpouring of support was overwhelming. Fellow athletes, fans, and queer youth celebrated his bravery. For many young gymnasts watching, Alec became more than a role model. He became a reflection of possibility, proof that you could be strong, successful, and still be exactly who you are. But coming out didn't erase the pain of hiding. Alec later spoke about the loneliness he felt in locker rooms, the coded language of coaches, the fear of being seen as too soft. He talked about how gymnastics gave him discipline, but how embracing his identity gave him peace. Today, Alec is still flipping expectations, only now it's off the mat. He's become a fierce advocate for mental health and queer inclusion in sports. With elegance and empathy, he's paving a new path, one where athletes don't have to choose between excellence and authenticity. He may no longer be chasing Olympic gold, but Alec Yoder is still winning, just in a different arena. Drop a 3 if you believe vulnerability is the new definition of strength. Strong. Jake Daniels, the teen striker who kicked down England's closet door. At just 17 years old, Jake Daniels didn't just break into professional football. He broke a silence that had lingered over England's most beloved sport for decades. A promising striker for Blackpool FC, Jake had everything ahead of him: talent, speed, youth, and an entire career waiting to unfold. But in a world where no current top-tier male footballers in the UK had publicly come out, he decided to do something no one saw coming. He came out as gay. It was May 2022, and overnight, Jake Daniels became the first openly gay active male footballer in the UK in over 30 years. And he was just a teenager. For context, English football, like many male-dominated sports, has long been seen as a fortress of toxic masculinity. Locker rooms were filled with coded language, and the terraces often echoed with homophobic chants. It's the kind of environment that scares most athletes into silence. But Jake, he looked at that fear and walked right through it. In an emotional interview with Sky Sports, he said, "I've known all my life that I'm gay, and I feel like now I'm ready to come out and be myself." His words were honest, raw, and mature beyond his years. They didn't come with a PR stunt. They came with the courage of someone who just wanted to play the game he loved, without lying about who he was. The football world responded like never before. Premier League legends, fellow athletes, LGBTQ+ icons, and fans from every corner of the world rallied behind him. Blackpool FC stood by his side, proudly supporting their young star. Social media lit up with messages of admiration, calling Jake a trailblazer, a hero, a game changer. But not everyone cheered. Some trolls came out of the woodwork. Some tried to mock or downplay his story, and some asked the age-old question, why does it matter? It matters because visibility saves lives. It matters because millions of young LGBTQ+ fans finally saw someone who looked like them, who played like them, owning the spotlight without apology. Jake's coming out didn't just shift the conversation, it cracked something wide open. Today he continues to play for Blackpool, train hard, and inspire others, not with speeches, but with presence. He reminds us that being a professional athlete and being gay are not contradictions. They're not even surprising anymore. They're just real. Drop a 4 if Jake's bravery made you believe football can finally be for everyone. Keegan Hirst, the rugby warrior who refused to hide. When Keegan Hirst came out in 2015, he wasn't just another athlete sharing his truth. He was the first British rugby league player to do it while still playing professionally. And he did it from the heart of one of the most traditionally masculine sports in the UK. Tall, muscular, rugged, Keegan looked every bit the tough-as-nails forward you'd expect in rugby league. For years, he played the part, both on the pitch and off. Married, 2 kids, silent battles behind the scenes, but inside, he was crumbling. Every match, every moment with teammates, every family dinner, he was performing, not living. In his own words, "I had a wife, kids, a nice house, but I wasn't happy because I wasn't being honest with myself." The pressure of hiding his identity drove him into a personal crisis. He thought about quitting the sport. He thought about running away from everything. Instead, he did something braver. He faced the world as his full self. In a powerful interview with the Sunday Mirror, Keegan came out as gay. It sent shockwaves through the rugby world. A player in the prime of his career, not stepping down, not retiring, but coming out and staying in the game, that mattered. Because rugby, especially league, has always had a man-up culture. Toughness is prized. Sensitivity is rarely spoken about. And queerness, often invisible. Keegan shattered that silence. He didn't just come out and retreat. He kept playing, he kept training, and he kept talking. His story sparked nationwide conversation in the UK about sexuality in sport, toxic masculinity, and mental health. LGBTQ+ athletes reached out to thank him. Straight fans sent letters saying their views had changed. Entire locker rooms began to feel a little less closed off. But it wasn't all easy. Keegan faced homophobic abuse online. He had to unlearn years of internalized shame. He had to rebuild relationships, but he did it with integrity, humor, and grit. And he became a role model, not just for LGBTQ+ athletes, but for anyone struggling to live their truth in a world that tells them not to. Now retired from professional rugby, Keegan continues to speak out. He campaigns for inclusion in sports, supports mental health initiatives, and proudly represents the possibility of life after the closet, with strength, joy, and freedom. He showed the world that you can be a powerhouse on the field and be openly gay, that being tough and being true to yourself aren't opposites, they're allies. Drop a 5 if Keegan's journey proves real strength means playing the game as you. These 5 athletes weren't just playing to win. They were playing to survive, to be seen, to stay true. They faced judgment, hate, isolation, and the very real threat of losing everything. And still, they stayed. They spoke. They fought back. Their stories are not just about sports. They're about the human spirit, about rewriting the rules of masculinity, and about proving that queer excellence doesn't just belong in the margins. It belongs at the center of the field. Whether it's rugby, gymnastics, football, or figure skating, these men showed us what it really means to be brave. Because being strong isn't just about muscles. It's about standing tall when the world wants you to shrink. So the next time someone tells you there's no place for you, remember this. You belong. You're not alone. And your courage might just inspire the next champion. Drop a "if you believe every LGBTQ+ athlete deserves to play with pride," and follow Rainbow Spotlight for more true stories that make sports a little more human.